So thank you very much for coming on this afternoon, everybody. My name is David Durant. I'm the delivery manager on the managed Tenancy platform work we were talking about this afternoon. Just to let you know that we are recording this because we haven't been able to live stream it from here. So just bear that in mind when you come to asking questions later on. We're going to make this available to people who can't attend in person today. So what this project is all about is updating the software that's being used to deliver the managed Tenancy product. We're delivering this in a series of 2-week sprints. There's going to be 5 of them in total, so this piece of work is going to end right about the middle of January. And this is the show and tell for the end of sprint 2, where we're going to be able to demo some of the software that we've been developing over the last couple of weeks. Thank you. So this is the team that's been working on projects. So it's a mixture of folks who work for Hackney IT and our partner at DXW, and this is a mixture of programmers and designers and delivery managers, and Lorraine sends her regards from Tunisia, where apparently she's having a lovely time. Nice. So these the overall things we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the project goals. We're going to have a demo of some of the software that we've done, and we're going to demonstrate how, unlike the software we've got at the moment, we can make updates much more quickly in the new version. And then we're going to talk about some of the feedback you shared with us and how that's helped us improve the service. So the overall project goals, first and most important thing in this piece of work is to enable what we call offline working. We know that there's a lot of problems for housing officers at the moment, using their iPads, going out on the estates, especially in tenants' houses and flats, where for one reason or another there's very poor connectivity. The service has got to be online at the moment to work. So as soon as the network drops, we're having a lot of problems. So what we're doing in the new version is we're enabling people to be able to fill out the information on their iPads, and then when they come back to a place where they reconnect to the network, it'll all upload it. So hopefully those problems will go away. We'll definitely do some testing for that before we leave, make sure it's all fine. The second thing we're doing is we're doing a big chunk of moving away from our existing software platform, which is a thing called OutSystems. That's going to save us a lot of money, and it's also going to make it a lot easier for us to maintain the software moving forward. And then the third thing we're doing is that the type of software that we're putting in place now is going to enable us to not only be able to update processes for managed tenancy via the feedback that you give us much more quickly, but also we're doing a whole bunch of work thinking about what are the next set of processes we're going to be putting online in the new year, and the way that we're developing our software now means that we're going to do that a lot quicker in the future. So for these last 2 weeks we had a specific set of sprint goals. So the first one was to make sure that we had a place in the cloud where our software is going to live and that we can put our software there quickly and efficiently. The second one is to start rebuilding Tenancy Household Check to demonstrate the way that we're doing stuff works properly. Oh. The third one is to be able to demonstrate that we have an existing system that we're building this new version on top of, so we need to be able to demonstrate we can get data in and out of that existing system. And then the last one is to be able to make sure that we can test this new version of managed tenancy that we're building in a way that enables the maximum number of people to interact with it to get us as much feedback. And now I'll hand over to F and Chris, who are going to, and Jill, who are going to talk us through.
Yep. So we've been building the Tenancy and Household Check. So what we're going to do a demonstration of what we've got at the moment. It's a very first draft, so it doesn't look the prettiest, but it will improve over the next sprint. It's the start and end of the flow with the interaction with the offline stuff. So the chain, that's the bits that are going to be most different from the stuff you've seen before, or the stuff you use at the moment rather, and some of the identity and residency check. So should we demo?
Yeah, sure. Just make sure. Yeah. Okay. And so, yeah, it's worth noting when it comes to making these processes offline, there is certain data that we still need to have beforehand so that we can actually give you the full flow to complete. And so when you first come to a process, you'll receive a screen similar to this, where it's waiting to go online to collect the data necessary. And so we've put a button in to demonstrate the difference between when you've collected that data and when you haven't. And so when you've collected the data, it will pre-populate some areas with the information needed. In this case, for this process, you have the address, you've got the tenants, you've got the tenure type, you've got the tenure start date. And then this button should light up as well, meaning that you can go offline and start your process.
Yeah. So this page is the page that happens before you go offline. You'll have to do that page before you go offline, so that it downloads all the data that it needs in order to run the rest of the process offline.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're offline.
Yeah. And so now we're offline. This is the first page you'll see in the Tenancy and Household Check. This is the beginning of us fleshing out the pages for the process itself. And so this will just be the page which is going to ask you things about unannounced visits, etc., etc. And so from there we can start the visit. And then we have an extra page in for about the visit. Is this an unannounced visit? Yes. And then at the end of the flow.
So that's so.
Oh, sorry. Shall I go outside?
Do you want to finish on that one?
Do you want to go from here?
So we're just demonstrating what we have so far for some of the first draft of the tenancy and household check. So yeah. So we're offline at the moment.
Yeah. And so once you've filled in all the parts of the process that you need to complete it, you'll reach the submission page. When you're currently working offline, you can't submit to the manager because we need to be able to integrate with the API to send the data. And so you'll receive some information telling you that you're currently working offline, that this needs to be saved when you're next online, and to not close this page beforehand. And so when you are back online and you can submit this process to the housing manager, you should see the button light up again, and you'll have an indicator here saying that you're online and you can continue with the process. And from there you can click the button to submit, and then you'll receive a confirmation page telling you that this is done now. You can go and do what else you need to do.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a very important thing to note here is the amount of time it took us to build this, being that using the current system, this has been something that we've built very quickly beforehand, and that going forward it should be very, very fast to build out new processes.
Yeah.
And so we've decided that we're going to kind of try and quickly build something in the demo to prove how straightforward it is. And so if we go to the code for building this.
Yeah, so this is the code for this page here.
And so, this is the code for this design we've got here. And so as you can see, we're missing one section, being that is it taking place inside the tenant's home with some radio buttons. And so when it comes to building this in, all we need to take is this piece of code here, and you can copy and paste this by here. Make this key 5, make that H2, and change this to is this taking place inside the tenant's home. Sorry. And hopefully we should have that on the page ready. And we can continue that process if we wanted to and add the radio buttons in as well.
So in the existing system that we've got, which is based on this product call out system, this kind of thing would take days to do. And the system that according to DXW we've put in place now means that we can adapt this sort of thing considerably faster. So the service design team at Hackney IT is looking at what the next process is after the rebuild of Tenancy and Household Check and ITV are complete. And when we understand what they're going to be in the new year, the hope is that we can use the kind of thing that Chris was just demoing to be able to put those online really quick. but essentially line up what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Like we put together this particular page in order to demo it today in about 20 minutes. So like in order to build more of these things, it'll go pretty quickly.
Yeah, like we hope in the long run that this is going to be something that takes a matter of days rather than a matter of months to build out new processes with. And so yeah, that's the demo for what we've been building. Hopefully we can show you a lot more next sprint.
Yep.
Okay.
So just to kind of reiterate some things that Ed and Chris have been saying. So there are these small changes that we need to make part of the process, particularly at the beginning and the end of the process. So, but the guidance will be within the process itself. So you'll come to a page, you won't be able to proceed until the data is uploaded, and at the end you won't be able to close it down until the data has been saved as well. So it's quite important, especially quite important as you're going through the process, and if you're working offline, we're actually using the web browser that the service is working in to save the data. So it's really important when you get to the end of the process that you don't shut down your web browser because you'll lose your data. But there will be instructions on, we'll be giving some guidance around it, and we are kind of testing this all out. We've done some testing with some of the housing officers to see whether they kind of understand that concept that we've been working to. And by and large, it seems to be, yes, they have understood that. And we'll also be going out and doing some testing of ourselves. So we'll be testing it with 4G, also with 3G, so when you've got a slow connection, and also when there's no connection as well, just to make sure that it all works. So we'll do that, we'll do our own testing on it. And then we'll actually try and go out as well, outside and into real situations to see how it behaves then as well. And also to work with housing officers a bit more to see how it's working for them. So Chris and Eff have been particularly working on this kind of beginning and end bit, because that's the bit that's going to change mostly for you and will enable us to provide an offline service. So that's kind of the focus of it really. I've also been out taking out the tenancy household check process to some of the housing officers and just seeing what they think about some redesigns of it. Going through a rebuild process with DXW, it's given us the opportunity to kind of revisit the tenancy household check, kind of smooth out some of the kind of not so nice bits of it, perhaps, from a user's point of view. And also, you've been using it the housing officer's been using it for about a year now, possibly longer. And during that time, you've given us feedback about the process itself. So there are a number of things that you said about it, so we've incorporated all that feedback. I've kind of did a bit of redesign on it. I took it out to some housing officers, went through that process with them, and they gave me some feedback. We were able to incorporate pretty much most of that feedback into the designs that DXW are delivering. So we've been able to do that quite a quick process, really, in terms of that. And also the feedback we haven't yet got, we got from you, but we haven't been able to incorporate. We'll hang on to that feedback. And as Chris and Eff have just said, very quick to reiterate stuff now, which has always been a bit of a problem in the past. So hopefully we'll be able to incorporate some of that stuff as well going forward. I can just show you some of the screens where we incorporate the feedback. So this was the screen you showed earlier. So this is about the offline working. On this page, which is when you get to the tenant's home and you're standing outside, we had some feedback about wanting to be able to take, if there were metal gates, being able to take that picture at that point. So we've incorporated that feedback, and so if you take a picture there, it'll show on this page, but it'll also show on that metal gates page, so you've got that information right up front. On this one, this was another bit of a redesign of this kind of flow around the ID and residency check, and this page was quite liked by the housing officers. They liked the ability to be able to say which tenants were actually present when they went to do the visit, so that was a change. We've been asked in the past to be able to take more photographs of proof of ID, because sometimes when you're doing ID, you need to take the kind of, like for a passport, you need to take that inside page, you need to take the back of the passport to see that it all matches up, and sometimes there might be some sort of residency right to remain type document as well, immigration document that you also need to take a picture of. So we've enabled you to be able to take a few extra photos for the ID. We were also asked to whether we could collect other support details. So it might be a support worker, it might be a social worker, it might be a doctor's. So just collecting that information, particularly when you've got vulnerable residents, so you've got that extra bit of detail about who else you could contact if you need to for those people. We also took the opportunity to combine some of the questions. In the current process, it's very much one question, one page, and in some places that didn't seem to work as quite well as it could have done. So we took the opportunity to group some of the questions together, but if they were around sort of a common theme. So this one, you're talking about rent arrears, and then perhaps the next natural thing is to ask about housing benefit and also about the role of the income officer and whether they're in contact with them. So that seemed like a natural flow to the conversation, and again this is tested quite well with the housing officers who've seen it. Another one, laminated floor and permission floor, combine those two pages into one page. Structure changes the same, combining two questions to one page. And garden, so generally there were people asking for more opportunities to take photos, and garden was one of them, so we've added the photo component on the garden page. Metal gates and combustible materials behind metal gates, we put those on one page, so they seem to go together as well.
Yeah, and that photo would be the same photo. That photo would be pre-filled with one if you took one at the beginning of the journey.
That's right, yeah. Pets, so we combined the pets and the permission for pets, that's all on one page now as well. And antisocial behaviour, so the curious thing about the antisocial behaviour question was that it was actually in the kind of bit of the section that you'd only ever come to if you're going to do a home check with the Tenancy household check. So there had some discussions with housing officers about that, and there was a sort of general consensus to move it out of that kind of well-being section and to put it into, I think it comes after pets now. It's in the end of that section anyway. So we've moved it, so you will ask for it. This is the review and submit page. So that's all been kind of cleaned up and tidied up a bit. So, and it's got more information on it now. So we are kind of displaying all the information that's that you've collected basically, which we'd have to actually miss some of that off. Probably unlikely that you'd ever have quite as much information as there is on this page, because this is just kind of demonstrating an answer to every question. But we've also added a comment box here, so that was a kind of request from the housing officers that they might at this point want to add another comment at the end of this before the tenant signs it.
Can I ask, if it's not too late, is there any possibility to add an option, when the signature appears?
Yeah.
Because I've had quite a few issues where it might be, for example, an elderly tenant
Yes.
or someone who's finding it difficult to use the finger. So maybe if in that scenario, I'd ask them to use a pen and sign on a bit of paper and take
Yeah.
a picture of.
Oh yeah, we had. I knew that request was, and we did consider it. And Lorraine was involved in the conversation as well. We were a bit unsure about it really, because they could be signing anything. Well, whether that was a good thing to do or not. So we are still. That is a bit being debated a bit, but we'll hang on to that, and we can kind of revisit it a bit. You have got the comments box there now, so you are able to say if someone's unable to sign that's an issue for that particular reason, so that's an option there. And this is kind of the end of the process, this is the bit about it being offline and what you should do if you're in an offline situation, which is don't close the browser and don't shut down, don't completely switch off your iPad basically until you're back online. So once you're back online, you can just you'll come back to this from your work tray, open it up, and it should all sync up, and the buttons will tell you that you can now submit it.
So if your battery's dead, it's all on.
No, so it is actually saved on your device, but it's just it won't sync with the server unless you are running it. So, yeah.
And
But if you accidentally close that browser, then
we will recover it. It is recoverable, but we're trying to because while DXW are here, we have a limited time to do the best thing we can do, and so we're focusing on the processes. But when we go to replatform the hub, there'll be a whole bunch of improvements we can make to this workflow around preloading stuff from the hub, so that it's not when you're actually going into the process that it starts, it's somewhere else. And so, yeah. But like for now, in order to get it working at all offline, these are the sort of compromises that we had to make.
Can you just swap between, if you start off online, because it's all going swimmingly, and then very often what happens halfway through, it just kind of
Cuts off.
Yep. Can you swap to offline?
Yeah, so it's going to be built with, or it is built with the presumption that you're always offline, and so it assumes that you're offline. And if you are online, great, we can do some data syncing. But otherwise, it just pretends you're offline all the time.
Oh,
And so, like when you get to the ends of these processes, you might not see this page because you're online already. So like you might just immediately send it to the server, and you don't have to wait to go back online.
I mean, my understanding is that when you come out of a tenant's property and you come into the general part of the estate, you'll probably go back online anyway. So it's not like, you have to go back to the office and you have to go anywhere specific. It should be as soon as you get out of the dead zone that is the particular residence flat, then you should immediately be able to sync it.
I was told that the new system's going to come as an app. Is that an app?
No.
It's not an app.
No.
No, it's still a website.
The other question I've got is, I don't know if we've done this really, but where we're doing, we've made 3 visits and not been able to carry out the process, and in some cases we're going to refer that on to fraud. At the moment it just seems to stick
Yeah.
in the tray, and there's no way it's getting reported, and then we're going to have to go back to the old way of doing
Yeah.
it through UH, which takes forever.
So what I'm doing at the moment, I'm reworking that bit of the process because
Okay.
it does exactly that, and it leads you kind of down a dead end, and it
Yeah.
all gets a bit stuck. So I'm reworking that at the moment, and then that will be able to incorporate the kind of reworking of that design. So I need to I'm redoing the designs, and I've mapped out what it actually should be doing. So when I've redone the designs, I'll be taking it out to some house doctors just to check that it's now doing what it should actually be doing. So when you get to the end of that, it'll pick up the review and submit as the review and submit page. You'll be able to submit that to your manager as though it's a Tenancy Council check.
Okay.
And then you'll just have the process for the. So what we won't have included, we'll still be creating those post-visit actions like for the fraud team. So that's kind of separate to it. But does that sound?
Yeah.
What it's
At the moment
need
it's
to
just
do?
sticking in the tray, and I don't know what to do.
Yeah. So hopefully sort those sorts of things out.
One
so-
more question,
Yeah,
sorry.
that's
is,
all right.
in regards to the actual website, you said when you're offline, you basically just don't shut the browser. Can you then open another browser and do another one?
You can open a new tab, yeah.
You can open
Yeah,
it.
that's fine, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Jill, you're saying that you've been showing these designs to some individual housing officers. Is there a place where interested people who might want to give feedback could sign up to, that Jill could put something somewhere that you could all go and look at it? And if there isn't, could we make one, like a G plus group, maybe?
Okay.
Well, we'll go and think about that. So it might be, if there are folks who are particularly interested in giving feedback, we can put the designs in a place and you get an update, and then you can all have a look and let us know.
And then just the last page, it just shows the page after it's been submitted to the manager. So if you just show at the top of the page. I've just brought in some more information. So this gives the managers a bit more information about, well, it's basically the information that has been collected during this visit. So it says, sorry, at the top of the page. So it says who completed, which officer did the Tenancy household check, the date it was completed, whether it was announced or not, where is something else, I can't read them, whether it took place outside the home, the reason for the visit, and who was present for the check. So that's just collating all that information that is gathered during the process of the Tenancy household check, but doesn't really need to be signed off by the tenant. So that's why it's not displayed on the tenant, because the tenant doesn't really need to know that information. But it then just gives a full picture of what has happened during this Tenancy household check. And then so it's just the same as it is now. So the manager can comment and approve or decline it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it.
Cool. Does anybody have any more feedback or questions over here? Cool. So I think what we'll do when we get back is we'll think about what the best place is to start being able to put more of these designs, we can get more feedback from more people. Do people use the Google Plus for like the housing group to list notifications on that? Cool, so we'll have to think about whether we can set up one more of doing that kind of thing. So, what's next? So, in the next sprint, we're going to be finishing the identity and residency check for part of Tenancy Household Check, making sure we can show that off at the end of the next sprint. We're going to be testing offline working, so that means we're going to be actually going out to estates and trying out what happens when it drops offline, just to make sure that works properly. We're going to get as much feedback as possible from the designs we're going to be doing before the 7th of January, because after that we've got one more sprint to be able to implement stuff before DXW leave, although we'll definitely still be working on this product long after that. We've got a long list of things we want to fix. That just happens to be when our partners are going away. And one other thing is that we think that this way of creating new web pages that allows us to change things really quickly and build new things really quickly, much faster than the way we were doing it previously, is something that we want to get into more of the services that we build at Hackney. So this is not just managed tenancy, but it's going to be for lots of other products as well. So in order to demonstrate that to folks, we're going to do a more technical show and tell for more of the Hackney IT people, so that we can start building more things on top of this platform we've put together. And that's that. If anybody comes up with any questions later on, that's where you can find me. We've been recording this whole thing on video. I'll send it around to all the housing officers to make sure that folks who haven't had an opportunity to attend can give us some feedback. But thank you very much for coming. And if you have any more questions, just let us know. Thank you.
I do will the information we're getting on this, obviously we've got UH running, just got a lot of information on it, we're doing this, they don't kind of cross-pollinate, do they? They don't.
So they do in some small ways,
Right.
but not necessarily as much as we would like. So there are thoughts starting to be had at the moment about the long-term suitability of UH and what we might want to do in the future. They're at a very early stage, but there are now a group of people in Hackney IT who are dedicated to thinking about what we should do about it, because it's quite old and it doesn't necessarily do what we want to do. We're not sure what the right answer is yet, but now there's definitely people looking at that properly. So in the new year we'll have some concrete steps as to what the longer term evolution is going to be for how we balance what's going to be in UH and what's going to be in these new services. So those folks are working on that right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.